So we ended up being a little bit in the grants here. So there's two ways to look at this, and it really comes down to timing. If you want to act fast and get things done now, you're going to opt out to do it yourself. You can privately hire somebody to come and clean it up. The other way is to wait for the government to do it. Currently, we know that that is taking some time. For example, when the Woolsey fire happened, I think it happened in November. By May of the following year, they only had about 900 homes. So there will be a delay. There's definitely a delay, and there was one of the opportunities to sign up to offer nothing. You can push back and go back to the line. It could. It's 2027, 2026 to get all of these opportunities. The two major things are timing and money. Money is going to be the first thing. We hear kids all over the place how much it costs to clean up the property. It's like $25,000, and everybody will get $147,000. That is the dollar that you have to deal with, but that is one of the upfront costs you have to pay. You will get this money out of pocket. If you wait for the assistance, you will not have your insurance. The insurance policy, that's what it's called. When you have an insurance policy, what is covered, what is not covered. There is a line item for every claim that the insurance come out of the whole pot. But you do need to
I don't know if they'll be talking about that. Like rebuilding. She wanted to know if we were going to be discussing air quality.
Getting my plans ready to submit, hopefully, in March, and where they're going to expedite review. And review occurs and it goes through smoothly, and the Army Corps hasn't identified properly, I will try to start doing it. At this stage, even for me, who do it on our own, I don't really feel the need because they might get there. You know, we're all kind of around. From the insurance standpoint, the way that the Army Corps is going to bill, the county's actually controlling the paperwork and the way that they get the information on a daily basis. So all the stuff that we submit goes to the county, they review the title, make sure you are the owner, and then at that point they approve the release to the Army Corps. The Army Corps will bill your insurance, but they've now created a structure where they will bill at CLO. So, yes, they will bill your insurance, but if you, as a homeowner, or your clients as a homeowner, have used that line item, that debris line item, to clean your lot during the time pre-construction, once you're at CLO, the county then tells the Army Corps, hey, while he finished his property, he's at CLO, they will then send a bill. If there's no money left in that insurance pot, they won't receive anything.
I think we'll just clarify for those who are not agents or in the industry, CFO is certificate of occupancy. So that's when you can technically move back into.
Yeah, so that's how that works. Originally, they didn't have that structure. Of course, there was a fear like who's going to manage our billing, how are they going to get our money, and so on. So at least with that type of sequence, at least that gets the homeowners to use their money first. Yeah.
Will there be any reconciliation between the amount of the engineers in charge for that versus what rightly you paid as an independent individual? Let's say, for example, you pay $50,000, but you got a line item limit of $100,000 in insurance company, and 4 engineers, then it's a savings of $1,000. Will they again be able to go back to the
Yes. So as long as there's money left in the pot, as of right now, they will then request that money. Yes.
Do you have any experience where the Corps of Engineers bill is actually higher than the line item?
So there's so I don't know the inner works of the bill. I can tell you from the town hall meetings that everyone's probably heard, you've heard outrageous numbers of up to 170,000. So, who knows? I mean, these are all the people that are cleaning up the lots right now are subcontractors. So, they're, you know, the Army Corps gets them, they build the Army Corps. Of course, the federal government is then subsidizing this. So I think it's just more of whatever is left in the pot. And, you know, on an average, it's taking about 2.5 days to clear a standard lot. So, that's,
I kind of heard there's a limit on maximum they charge, and then if you don't have the insurance, they don't charge you for that. That's my cleanup. If you do, then I think there's a max. You might want to check that. Secondly, if you do it yourself, you have to have a licensed hazmat.
that's right, yeah.
You can't just go out and even if you find appropriate dumpsters and things like that, dump your metal waste or
Yeah, you should always use a licensed, medical,
otherwise they won't be
contractor.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have not heard anywhere that if you use a private contractor to clear your lot, can you still take all that debris to the federal location? Because it's all part of the same situation, or do they then have to move it somewhere else?
Well, this is what I was gonna add. I've talked to a number of debris removal companies, and they've mentioned specifically that they have to be actually approved by FEMA or the EPA. So I think the first thing is, if you're talking to a debris removal company and they are not approved by the EPA or FEMA, you shouldn't be working with them, even if they're a licensed contractor. The most important thing to remember if you do it yourself is that the Army Corps of Engineer and the EPA are still gonna need to clear your lot. And if you don't do it in the way that they want you to do it with a private contractor, that's gonna be an issue. So that's the number one risk in doing it yourself. As far as the money goes too, what I've experienced with a couple people, I think, there's some less than reputable people maybe that are in the debris removal business, and like, this is Christmas for them. And we've had some people where like, our clients will go back and say, well, I only have X amount in my insurance line item, and they'll just say, okay, well, I'll do it for that. So like, as long as you aren't spending any money out of your own pocket, if they will do it for the amount that your insurance will cover, that might be a way that you want to go versus the government. Again, the main thing with the government thing is timing. The government stuff will be absolutely free, whether or not your insurance covers it or not. Right? The government is going to make you whole in that way, whether you have insurance or not, or whether your insurance has been used up by a private company. But if you do use a private company, I would just make sure that they have gone through, there's a process that they all have to go through, and they've had to do it in the last couple of weeks. This isn't like you're approved by the EPA all the time. The people I've been talking to have been submitting paperwork in the past couple of weeks to be approved subcontractors. Not only, by the way, some of them will be doing the work on behalf of the government, and you can get approved to do that work on behalf of the government, or you can get approved to do it for private citizens.
And one thing to take away from this is, there are checks and balances just to clear your lot. You do need a permit to clear the lot. And so in order for these people to qualify, to make sure they're doing everything properly, the county will actually issue a permit before you start clearing. So keep that in your mind, is you do need a permit to clear. So if any of the demo contractors you may hire just start cleaning out of nowhere, that's something to be familiar with. Be aware of that. You do need checks and balances.
That rule of building safety or?
Yeah, through the county of Los Angeles, through public works.
So my question is, during the debris removal, do you recommend removing foundation or?
That is do you want to do that now? That's a big question.
That's a big opinion question.
Yeah.
I'll let the structural guy.
Well, James can comment structurally. I was just actually gonna note, this starts to get in the weeds a little bit, but, you know, the city is gonna allow you to rebuild where your house was. And the assessor records that you're able to get usually don't say where on the lot that it sits. And I know it's an expense, but it may be prudent to get a property survey, or sometimes they'll come and just do your property lines and the foundation that exists. That'll give you a record of where your house was, and that way you can prove to the city where it sat before, because the aerial photographs sometimes aren't great. So whether or not you decide to keep your foundation, which James can speak about, that may be something that you choose to do. I know survey companies have already been going to my clients' lots, like they're not waiting for the EPA to clear the lots. So they're going in and doing surveys now, as far as I'm aware. So there might be something.
I think that, we do want to have James talk about that. First, before we get to you, we had somebody in the back here. If you could stand up when you're asking your questions so everyone can hear.
Yes, my question is, are there specifications clearly defined as phase 1 and phase 2? I was reading an article yesterday that said phase 2, originally they started with 6 inches down and now they think that it needs to go further. If you sell a lot and those rules change, the question is,
Once the lot is cleared, you will get a certification form that says this has officially been cleared and we're done. And so when you talk about going into the depth of the, I mean, that also gets into your foundation. As you remove the foundation, you will lose soil, you will go down. Before we hand it off to James, now James, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is there is a lot of houses in this neighborhood that don't meet today's code. You will have to build a foundation that will meet today's code. A lot of the hillside properties required large piles, caissons, things like that, which a lot of those houses did not have. You have slab on grades. The general consensus is those slabs, those just standard slabs that sit there with not a lot of footings underneath them, they're probably not going to be sufficient to bring back. So that is something you got to keep in mind. Where's your house? When was the last time you've done foundation work on it? You do have to get it tested to see if it actually will work. People with piles, caissons, weave your foundations. Those are great things to look at to try to keep those. Some of the slabs on grade ones, those ones probably won't be saved as much. I'll let you take that.
Yeah, sure.
Before we jump to that really quickly, we have one over here and then we'll get to you. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
I just have a question. How much does it cost to have a property survey done? To have somebody go out and draw these, your property lines and actually where the foundations were? What does that cost?
If you just did the property bounds and the outline of any structures, $1,000,
Look, Ken,
$1,500.
you get in the world of,
On an average, you've got 1,500 roughly. Like what we said earlier, the issue you're gonna have is the band and trying to get everyone coordinated. Even these vendors are already fairly busy prior to this, and now trying to get them out there. But just purely property line survey, again, 1,500.
most people wouldn't say to the law,
Yeah.
set the corners.
You had a question over here?
Can you confirm that for structural engineers, that you need the survey information to do your calculation?
So when it comes to survey, what we're talking about is locating the geometry of the property lines and where the existing structure is and where the new structure is going to be. So you need it for permitting. So at the end of the day, in order to get a permit, you're going to need to know where the new structure is or the existing rebuilt structure is in relation to the property lines, because they are going to check to make sure you meet setbacks and that sort of thing. So it is technically possible. I've seen people draw the plans themselves and get it close. But what I've seen based on the cost of what a licensed survey is, it's not that much, and it actually ends up helping you quite a bit to get plans approved, and it helps in the trying to reuse your existing foundation. It helps in the documentation process.
during construction, you will also have to get another survey done. And so it makes it a lot easier, cleaner, more streamlined when you get the survey up front rather than find some, new surprises in the field while you're constructing. And so having that surveyor on board will be able to reduce your prices, reduce the back and forth, and so you'll understand. To answer his question, no, the survey really has nothing to do with the foundation. This is about locating. Because you gotta think about, back in the day, we know where the fences are, we know where the property lines are. It's pretty clear to know where everything is. With no structures out there, with nothing being out there, how do we determine where the property lines are? That's what the survey.
If property is like a slope, you need a topography.
Yes. On larger hillside properties, in Allen County, yeah, you're gonna need a slope analysis map to start looking at. And that's gonna help with other things too, your grading, how deep your caissons are gonna go, stuff like that.
So then let's go back to the question on foundation. So obviously we have the concerns for those hillside properties that are going to need to rebuild. But if, let's say that your property is on a flat space and your foundation could possibly have been compromised, how do we determine that and what's the going forward for that procedure?
Yeah, really, there's two ways at first approach. Just as you said, one, you have a hillside lot or you have a flat lot. There's really two different situations applying to each. Then the first question for everybody is, do I have my foundation removed or do I keep it? And how, you're looking at rubble, how do I determine is it good? What am I looking for this stuff? So it's kind of chicken and egg a little bit in the sense that, you know, in order to really determine your foundation's okay, you've got to clean it. But if you're waiting to clean it, then you can't tell the Army Corps of Engineers to remove it. So the first approach I'd say is there are some people doing limited tests for about $500 where they'll do some sounding tests on your foundation elements to see if it's basically a good or bad check. And if it's bad, then you can say, you know what, get rid of it. If it looks somewhat promising, then you keep it and try to use what you have. Now, what you have, when it comes to foundation, it really means a few different things. One is the hillside condition, that's sort of its own animal. Another condition is if you're retaining dirt, like retaining walls, that's sort of a different situation. But for your typical flat ground, you're going to have footings or foundations that support your walls, roof, and floor. And you're also going to have slab. The slab is just the finished floor surface of your first floor on some houses. Some have a wood finish floor. So, in general, there's really not a possible way to save your entire foundation and then just attach a new one to it. One of the reasons is, you know, we're allowed a 10% increase in the size of the home. And almost, I don't know if I've met anyone who said that their home as much as they loved it, was 100% exactly set up the way they want. Everyone has a window they want to move, or a wall that's in the way, or so at that point, the distribution, although it's a little bit different, so you will need some sort of new foundation based on just changing the way your home is going to be. The second aspect is we got to deal with earthquakes. And so if you think about how you attach a new building to an existing foundation, really you're talking about epoxy, which is just a fancy word saying glue. So you really can't just glue a new house down to an old foundation. You have to have some foundation elements that are helping it resist earthquake forces. But what you can do is reuse a lot of your existing foundation and supplement it. And the more you can reuse, then the more money you can save. So in summary though, to answer the first question is I would have someone do about a $500 test to get an idea, because some of these crews will remove debris so they can get to your foundation. See what it looks like and give you sort of a pass-fail. Then once it's clean, you can go back and actually do the engineering studies that can say this foundation is testing and the proof for permit. So at this stage, I would go for the yes, no, and then push it to where you're clean, and then do a bigger analysis.
And what kind of vendor would do this $500 test?
Yeah, so what I've seen is there are some engineers in conjunction with contractors acting in a partnership where the contractor will clean some debris and the engineer will use something called a Schmidt hammer where they'll bang on the foundation to listen to the way it sounds, and based on that, he gives an idea of those void stages. And you get an idea of what it's like beneath the surface.
Great.
Given the heat that the structure sustained, will did it impact or how can you find out if it impacted the integrity of the cement holding these foundations?
Sure. Yeah, there's two ways. One of the issues is loss of strength. And it's a pretty simple test where you can take core samples and determine the strength. But the more dangerous one, in my opinion, is the brittleness. And that is not measured. The heat will actually make the concrete stronger in some aspects, but it makes it more brittle. So there's another test to determine how brittle it is. But I will say, visual inspection with the Wolfson fiber got pretty close. It's pretty obvious if your foundation has problems, because you're going to see a lot of small. The ones that are just black, a lot of times it's just smoke, and it's really not structural. But if you see spalling or you see red color or a lot of discoloration, usually that's associated with the high heat. And usually, it's not, in Woolsey, I saw very few that were 100% in bad condition. Usually you can save some percentage of it. And then just to Michael's point, the one other aspect to consider is a lot of these homes were built with foundations before we had our tolerances that we accept now. Everybody talks about how oh, my dining room sloped down, but, the house settled. Nobody's interested in houses settling anymore, no one's interested in cracks in the ceiling. So, one of the main causes of some of that is having too shallow foundation, or your foundation might be 12 inches deep, but if you went 24 inches deep, you wouldn't have any issues. So depth of foundation is going to be another consideration, just because we don't accept cracking homes or stuck doors or stuck windows.
So in our area in particular, we have a lot of homes that would not meet today's setback requirements. And so when we're going through the rebuilding process, are these properties going to be required to adhere to today's standards for setbacks, or will they honor the location of the original home?
They will honor the original location. Now, every project is a case by case. Some houses, look, I'm sure if you had no setback at all, I'm sure the county would like to see it go back to at least 3 foot. Typically, you need a 3-foot setback. There's other reasons for that. Fire separation from your neighbors, how many openings you can have on the side wall that close to the property line. But yes, the overall answer is you can go back like for like.
Yeah.
So that's retaining your legal non-conforming conditions. That could be height. So the good thing is, for LA County, for unincorporated LA County, not the city of LA, the county, they're not actually very restrictive. In the city of LA, I'd say over 50% of those houses aren't even allowed to be that size anymore because of new ordinances that have been passed. So in Altadena and unincorporated LA County, the rules here are not really that restrictive. We know about the Altadena overlay zones from planning, but it's nothing to be really concerned about. And so really what you guys want back here is the best product, no matter what you can get. And if it comes down to needing a legal non-conforming item to withstand and hold up and getting that back, you can do that. There are reasons why maybe you don't want to do that. If you have no setback or 3-foot setback, it's for about fire separation. That's what it is. So maybe you want to push it back to 5 feet. And then, like James was saying, just like a window, if I just move the window, that can change my foundation. And so you go through all of this work. I know he said it was only $500 for the initial testing, but how much is a core set?
But yeah, when you get into now, you have to document and permit every aspect of your foundation. Now you're talking about $1,000.
Yeah, I think one core sample I've heard is like $5,000, right?
It might be because of demand, but in a typical environment, it could be more 2 to 3.
2,000 to 3,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to add to that, if you want to make your house any bigger, anything that's new, anything that's expanded has to adhere to current code. So if you have a wall that's existing non-conforming, it's too close to the side yard, you can't expand that any closer. You don't get 10% on top of that. Anything that you build that's outside of your original footprint has to meet today's code. Also to add, this is kind of a in the weeds type of thing, but this is a question that a client brought up. The executive order is very clear about existing plus 10% as far as setbacks and height, bulk, and mass. One of my clients asked, what if I want to build a basement? Add a basement. I got a very clear answer from the city of Los Angeles, and I got a very unclear answer from LA County when I went to the building department. I don't think they've made an official determination on whether or not you could add a basement and stay under the fire rebuild ordinance or not. That's something that I'm continuing to monitor. I'm hoping that they issue an official document with some of these things, and I've yet to see that. But that's just some clients with means are thinking about how can I keep my footprint but make my house bigger in some way outside of that. I'm also recommending like ADUs. I mean, that's another, my understanding is you can do an ADU and still rebuild your home as under the fire rebuild ordinance. There's all these kinds of different options you can consider when thinking about whether or not to add 10%, whether to go back to exactly where it was. There's just a lot of stuff to do.
Can you clarify on the ADU, does your old tax base also apply to the ADU? I thought it did.
No, so anytime you build new, they're gonna assess on the new amount.
Using SB9, I don't know, I thought I heard they will apply.
SB9 is a little bit different. That's for subdivisions and stuff. That's a whole other conversation. So, yeah, the question right now about taxes, with ADUs, new developments, I highly suggest you go on the LA County Assessor website right now. There is a website where you need to basically, as a homeowner, go tell them what happened. And they're gonna start essentially adjusting your taxes. Are you gonna be reassessed after this is all done? Nobody knows. I don't have that answer. I mean, in the Woolsey fire, my understanding was yes. So that is something that is still being worked out.
I sat with the tax, so one of the things I'm doing for my own home, I'm building up the original slab. But prior to the fire, I could not build anything.
Can you hold this for me while I'm
Thank you. And so now there's a variance that has been put in place where I can build a ADU, even though it's one-way access, because I can just go smaller square footage, 800 square feet. So, it wasn't the case a few years ago. Like Corey mentioned, it's very specific. The property that I'm putting like for like will be under the new ordinance, and it'll be reviewed. Apparently, they're saying within a week or two. The ADU will still be reviewed at a quicker pace, but it won't be passed quicker than the house. The state, there's ordinance, the state law, but because my home is fully burned, the house itself, the property address, will still be in a pot that's not part of LA County. So those things will move quicker. So for me, it's a calculated decision. If it adds an extra week or two of review, but I get an ADU now, that's a huge plus. The tax assessor did say that they would look at that as new construction and change my tax rate based on the new work of the ADU, because originally it was a pool house. So now it's an ADU, so it's considered new. If I added the 10%, because I asked them, that 10% would be taxed at the ADU as well. So my home will be left alone, but the 10% of anything new would be taxed.
And the ADUs are actual units, they're rentable units, so you, almost like you just turned a single family home into a duplex, so you won't get reassessed.
And the best thing I did was I went, of course, to the disaster center, and they're there. I got my tax records right on the spot. I got all the information from each of the departments right on the spot, which usually takes time to get. So I encourage all my clients and people we're working with is to go there, spend a few hours, it's going to take some time, so be patient. But you can go through each department and then basically get all the paperwork that everyone's going to need here. Or once it happens, and Mike knows something is submitted and they request paperwork, you're going to have it available right away for your team. So,
We have a question back here. Did you?
I was going to talk about splitting the land.
Sorry, can't hear you.
Splitting the land.
The subdivision,
Yeah.
SB9?
Yes.
We may need to come back to that one, that's a big question. So anytime you do a subdivision, it's gonna take you at least, something like 16 months to go through it. It's very costly to split your land. That is nothing I would suggest doing right now. You will get stuck in first.
SB9 is quite different though now. I spent a lot of time with them on this. It can happen a lot faster. It started in 2022, but now it really applies. If you're in a fire zone area, there are special rules. You can actually build 2 big houses and 2 ADUs, even if you're in a fire zone. So it's a real great opportunity right now to get it done.
so that fire map is going to change March 23rd, 24th, and there's going to be a massive new restriction that's going to come through. So I would just wait for you to find. Right now, if you look from a fire department perspective, my home is not in this fire map. The county considers it a high fire, but after March 23rd, they're going to bring that down, and there's going to be new restrictions that are going to come into play. So like water flow and all these other things. So yeah, just be cautious, folks.
And something to clarify with the ADUs, maybe nobody knows here, until really a couple of weeks ago, most of the properties in Altadena were in high fire zone and hillside with one access up to the street, like cul-de-sac. The county wasn't letting you build ADUs, and it was against the law. And so state came down, and apparently within the last couple of weeks, they changed that. They're going to start allowing you to build ADUs in the hillside. In the city of LA, Santa Monica, all these other places, you've been able to do it since 2019. Not LA County, but now it's for everybody. Pretty much everybody gets an ADU now.
Or junior.
Or junior ADU, yeah.
So my house burned, and I don't have an ADU, but actually my architect is actually working on it on a plan. I want to build an ADU before. However, I was told by the county that I wasn't allowed to build my ADU before my SFR, but actually when they've going back and forth, and they told them that I can, however, I have to submit the plans at the same time, so they can be approved. My ADU can be built, but it's up to the inspector to decide whether to give me the occupancy report before I start building on my home.
So I asked that same question because, you know, my wife wants to move back and, you know, I have 4 kids and they all want to be home, like we all do. You're gonna sign an affidavit that states specifically that once your home is built, they will move out of the ADU.
Okay.
You know, and then certificate of occupancy will be issued, and you can correct me when everything is finished.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can move in without having a certificate of occupancy?
Correct. So beyond the rules or beyond this fire, you would not be able to do that. They're only allowing you to do that now because of the fire. And pretty much,
It's just
all out there. So it's kind of just like when it's like a trailer. If I was under construction, I could bring a trailer to my property and live in the trailer. That's probably not the most ideal right now. So, which is actually really amazing. I mean, I worked with LA County for years. Like, you know, over 10 years. We've done the whole Woolsey fire. It's very political over there. The county isn't the easiest to work with. In that aspect, they're not very flexible. But this is a great blessing that they're going to allow you to do the ADU. You can build it, live in it. I mean, you're going to have gas hooked up, power, water, which I do want to come back to septic and bring that back. But if it's livable, and while you're still building your house, yeah, the inspectors don't let you go in there.
But the key is to have utilities, like, so where I live, the utilities are not in place yet. So water's not there yet, gas is not there yet.
Can't be living off of solar batteries.
And so it is exciting to understand and hear the changes, and, you know, like I was saying earlier, to also potentially have an opportunity to pull permits on our development in July and August, which I thought was going to be 2 years from now, so it's great. But if the utility companies haven't caught up, just be prepared to wait for them to catch up.
I do, but I'll come back. This is actually regarding the testing. So they're going to be removing all of this debris, and I want to wait. I have a little one, and I don't want to be inhaling toxins from other debris that's going to be removed. So do I wait until all of the debris is removed?
That's a personal.
When do I start? Because I don't want to start building until all of that's removed.
That is a personal choice. I'm sure everybody's lived on the street with construction. It's very dusty, you know, and so with the grading, with the amount of stuff that they have to do, it's called dewatering, right? Anyway, you gotta keep the water down, keep all the dust, you know. It's gonna be going on for years. And so, as you said, yeah, you're gonna be dealing with that. And so that is a personal choice of when you're gonna want to move in there. It's still gonna have high contaminations in the air. Like, there's nothing that they can do about that. I mean,
For a long time.
I mean, we still get examinations from the Owens Lake up in the 395. So it will be like that. There's a guy in the police shirt.
Thank you. So back to like non-conforming structures, will they take the tax rolls, which in this example would be a legalized duplex, or will they take the current zoning, which would be R1? I know it's kind of an edge case, but there's quite a few of those now coming in, so I'm trying to figure out, because obviously if you wanted to add on to that, if you have a duplex, you can add more ADUs.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
You're saying you're legal non-conforming, can you add 10%? I don't see why not, if it's legal non-conforming.
So one of the way it's explained to me is, let's say you have a home that's a triplex, and now the zoning is different.
You're getting it.
You're building the triplex. You can't just arbitrarily say, well, my zoning is different, I want to build this. Just like if you have a single family residence that the zoning allows you to build a triplex, you cannot build a triplex for life, you have to build a home. If you want to go through the regular process and all that, then yes, but that's the way that they're looking at it.
Now, and there is something to be said to there. For anything that is legal non-conforming, this is your chance to keep that. If you let it go after this, you'll never get it back. Whatever that is, you know. And one big thing while we're on the topic of legal non-conforming would be septic tanks. Does anybody have a septic tank at their home here? A lot of properties I work on all have septic tanks. They are a nightmare. If anybody here has a septic tank, that's something you gotta take into consideration. Septic tanks could be another $100,000. A lot of people don't realize that their system is not legal. Most septic tank systems aren't legal, they're outdated, they're not even septic tanks, they're cesspools. That's something everybody here has to be aware of. If you have a septic tank, that's something you want to look at. Now, a lot of times septic tanks do remain in good standing under their earth. You know, it's a big tank, and seepage vents. Maybe the leach line will have to be replaced. But anybody who here has a septic tank for their property or client or whatever, that is something you need to start looking at. It could cause other issues down the line. You know, you saw there's different testing that needs to be done for that. And if you guys can save that system, that would be your best bet. But normally what happens is, this system was designed 30 years ago. It was to allow 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms. In today's code, it only allows 2 bedrooms now. So the county will let you use that tank, use it again, and keep those 4 bedrooms, but you'll never be able to go beyond 4 bedrooms. So the septic tank is something that you just gotta think about.
Corey, did you have something to add?
That's what Mike just said. We've done a couple fire rebuilds where the biggest headache was the septic tank, because within the 10%, they added another bathroom, they added another bedroom. It makes you recalculate the septic tank. And in a lot of cases, then you have to do a new septic tank, even though everything else is basically like for like. And doing a new septic tank in LA County is a long process.
So, yes, question back.
Say you're the first to start rebuilding, what's your experience with county requiring fire extinguishers, fire hydrants, and all the other utilities to be up to code and upgraded? Who fronts that?
Well, this is nobody wants to hear this part of the conversation. So, this is what happened in the Woolsey fire. We all have experience in it. So, this becomes very political. We hope not to see it here in Altadena. In the Woolsey fire was Calabasas, Santa Monica Mountains. They do not want you to build over there. And so, something happened. Planning said you could do a fire rebuild, no problem. We have the plans here, it's approved. Building and safety said we see your construction documents, they're great. But the fire department requires you to test the fire flow out of all your closest hydrants. So if you have a hydrant, it's got to be within 300 feet of your property. And if you're in a high fire zone, you need 1,250 gallons per minute. I've done so many fire flows in this area. There's, I'm going to blame on all. There's Las Flores is one of your guys' major ones. There's, I think, Lincoln up there.
Rubio.
They are all terrible. They are all terrible. They never meet the fire flow requirement. And so what happened in the Woolsey fire is most of the people couldn't rebuild because they never met the fire flow. They'd go to the local water company and the water just wasn't there. Now those people had a choice. You could hold on to the property or you could sell it. A lot of people just walked away. You could hold on to your property, keep trying to test the fire flow, waiting until it comes back. We did call some of these companies recently. They're not doing fire flow tests right now. You would have to wait for them. Now, it's still our understanding the fire department is requesting fire flow. They've never changed it before. Why would they do it now? So that's where the one caveat is coming into play is how is fire and planning going to work with this right now? And if planning is talking about fast tracking your review, like look, they're fast tracking the initial review. There's always going to be a second review. How quick can that happen once you have your corrections? So are we going to get stuck in this, this time constraint where I can't get a fire flow testing? And I do know some of you people in Altadena, you don't even have hydrants on your properties. These are things to think about. Where is a local hydrant at? I think Wally shared his property with me, and I think they all own the street.
Yes, so the fire hydrant is actually in front of my house, but it wasn't used. So one of the things last week I did get was the application for the fire flow, and was passing around, and it does require you to go to the local water company. Like Mike said, they're not doing the testing. And so what I was mentioning earlier to the gentleman over there, in late March when the fire department remaps, my home will be required to have the pressure key
20,250 gallons per minute with a static pressure of 20. If you're not in a high fire zone, there's a chart you can go off of, you know.
Yeah.
And sprinklers, sprinklers cut that down. It's normally the hillside properties up in the mountains that are at a higher elevation that don't have hydrants. These are the ones that are going to get a little ticky-tacky, a little touchy. But again, just because the first time I don't need fire flow doesn't mean you can't just wait a couple months and go test again. Some of them were free. Some were charging $500 for the fire flow test. I'm not sure what's going to happen now. That's still up in the air.
I mean, most subcontractors for fire sprinklers, they do the flow test for you. So if you work with, all the new homes will require fire sprinklers, and so you're gonna have to have fire sprinklers. And if your contractor, is using a subcontractor, they can do the testing for you. But yes, you wanna get ahead of it. The gentleman at the fire department was like, well, just try to submit your application before March 23rd. And I'm like, okay, that's not gonna happen. He's like, because right after that, again, the math. But my view of it is there's just so many of us that have lost. And so I think that if this becomes a massive issue, just the negative publicity of it and the holding up of homes will hopefully put some pressure, like other areas that probably didn't have it. The scale of our loss, as we've all discussed and know, is large. So indirectly, hopefully that gets the right people pushing.
Oh, I'm sorry, you brought up pressure, but you also brought up proximity. So that's another requirement. You have to be 300 feet within a hydrant. So what if you're not? And you would assume, well, that's something the government pays for, but they usually don't. So in this situation, hopefully with some pressure.
Yeah, it could come down to where the water company may, or the fire department may ask you to build new fire hydrants. Numbers are always a little bit different, but 25,000 is about the ballpark of bringing in a new water hydrant for, well, that's not replacing it. 25,000 to replace it. That's to replace it. A new one to bring in a line, a trench line, that's a whole different topic. And just like I always said, in Santa Monica, the Little League Fire, we all know that's a little political, it's a different climate over there. It's not the city of Altadena, and so we really hope that. And whatever issues we run into, we're so early in the game that things will change. There will be updates, there will be policy changes. I'm sure somebody can have a couple of watch will someone else development for 6 months, and then they're going to fix it. Just like they do over there. They're different. We're talking about 40 acres, one hundred land, and private roads that are over 10 feet wide, and fire can't get there. And all of this is justified because it's called the life stage review. You have to have water. There's got to be hydrants in your property. Again, probably why they didn't really go there because there's no hydrant. And if you know there's no water with no hydrant, why would you do that? And so those are things you have to be aware of. Sometimes getting together as a community to bring a hydrant into your property, you guys got to get together, put the money up, and you should do. Sometimes you will have to work together, as a community. So more clarity to bring us together, more neighbors. These are things to think about. So water, septic, over 2 things,
So one of the questions I know that I've been about with clients that have lost their homes. The concern is going to be for the demand and the cost to rebuild when 6,000 other families are also in the same boat. So what do you recommend, and what's going to happen with the number of contractors? Are they going to increase their fees? What are we looking at?
My advice is move as fast as you can. This is the number one thing that I can't really, I don't know. We saw So the quicker you can move, further up the line you are, the less expensive things are probably going to be. I think that's just the bottom line. I can't possibly extrapolate what construction costs are going to be 18 months from now. I don't think anybody can. They are going to go up. Like right now, take a look. We're kind of going up. In about a year from now, they're going to be really high. And if you can get them down, get your contractor, get your pricing to lock in, get your materials locked in, it's going to help you out. As time goes on, there will be a lack of architects, engineers, people to actually do the work, but it will get better. There will be a time where prices are going to fall. And if you're the first one in there, you can lock in, you get your contractor from the you lock in, you got on the bid for all your lumber that you need. You have locked in prices. These are the things, these are the positive ways to move forward. But yes, there will be price gouging, there companies are going to go up. It's going to be hard to get some of these geologists on site. Some of these geologists getting out on site. Structural engineers like James over here. Everybody's becoming very busy. And because of COVID and everything else, we were busy before we got here. So, like Corey said, you gotta find the right team and just lock it and keep going.
We're all in real estate, and so one of the, everything's about value, right? What value that we provide. And one of the reasons why I started my own firm is as I started building more, I started realizing inefficiencies in construction. And so in lending, there's a lot of service, and there's a lot of handling, there's a responsibility that we have for our clients. And so making sure, these are the people I work with, making sure that your clients are working with highly professional, reputable people and contractors are very, very important. Now, I know of a handful of contractors that are very successful locally. They've never done this before. I know a lot of architects and engineers that are from out of the area that don't understand what's happening inside of them. So, and right now, we build the skill, we do our own things, and if people don't have the resources today, they're not going to have the resources in 16 months. If they don't have the purchasing power, the management, if they don't have the efficiencies in place today, they're not magically going to show up 16 months from now when everyone is asking for material costs. And some of the things that we have to forget the demand also, just the economics. There's tariffs that are coming. And so there's tariffs coming from other parties, on geopolitical issues. Those will also increase the cost of materials. And so being prepared, being ahead, and then working with your clients to financially back into their insurance. There's only so much insurance money that we have. And the last thing we want to do is put our clients in a position where we have to tell them in 12 months after losing their home, we need to bring them $100,000 because someone miscounted. And that's the financial piece that we're all looking at. I don't want to do that to my kids, my family. I'm sure everyone here doesn't want to do that to their clients. And making sure that, again, taking the time, it's hard, taking the time and working with them, financially breaking it down, working with professionals is very important. Not just this guy told me $350 for this to do a lot.
Another thing to be thinking of too, this is going to bring everybody out of the woodwork. There's going to be so many unqualified people out there drawing plans and doing permitting. So do your research, do your homework, reach out to one of us, if you need to double check somebody. Just people right now. It's gonna get a little crazy.
I'm just going to actually, first of all, leave it. The first thing I'm doing with all of my buyers and their clients, I'm going through their insurance information and confirming what they get. Now, this is a whole separate conversation, but there's a lot of unknowns even in insurance. There's 50% figures for this and 10% figures for this. And you don't know what you're going to get and how. But people don't realize there's a lot of other costs associated with building your house other than just the cost for putting your house. That's probably 60% of the overall cost. There's permit fees, there's own furnished items. Sometimes they will buy all your appliances, sometimes they won't.
About seeing, hey, they're throwing out this dollars per square foot to rebuild the house.
the way, well, I don't know, the SBA, the way it's structured now is that if insurance covers all your bills, SBA will not pay it. This is an SBA loan for home rebuild. If you are underinsured, as a lot of people are, or have no insurance, SBA will allow you to get a loan for the rebuild. So if they were, if you get $1 million policy and your home costs $1,121,000, technically, SBA can cover that $100,000. But they will not, it's not a double dip situation where they have to pay when your insurance is covered.
What about if you expand? Let's say your home was 1,500 square feet, and you build a 1,700 square foot house. Does SBA kick in if you have a shortfall for that extra?
I think it's fairly wide for like fire damage, from my side, not upper story, second story.
I also feel for a two-sided crowd, but that was before I submitted them your insurance, somebody that came back, so I don't know what to do with just the,
Yeah, so what they'll do, they'll do like an appraisal analysis on the rebuild. They'll say, hey, hypothetically, we're getting $500,000 insurance. It's going to cost you $800. We're going to lower it. If you provide a contractor's bid to show actually it's going to cost you $1 million, I still need it. They will still keep that. You just have to provide paperwork. But this is not SBA, just like in COVID, you can go back to it. They will always continue to re-decision or relook at the loan. So it's not a one and done situation.
just a question. I know from your experience, do you know if the front setbacks have been decided on? Because typically in the past, or anywhere, when you're building new structure,
That's the big thing for me is that if they want to try to maintain those fire rebuild rights, otherwise they're just building by right. It's going to take them a long time because they're going to have to get in line behind everybody else, and that's just a whole different animal.
I would look at it as a buying lot in its current state. What Corey's saying, buy right, in a sense, what was there, what kind of build. We all are in real estate, what was the comps, and what was that value pre-fire? Because in my opinion, seeing, as we all know, it's gonna, for values to get back to where they need to be, my assumption is that from a development standpoint, is all my neighbors need to rebuild. And all the businesses need to rebuild, so the building owners need to rebuild, so the business is gonna come back. Altadena is a special place. We've been here for a very long time. And there's something unique in that's what drove a lot of people here. That has to be rebuilt for those values to be there. So if it's a longer term play, so it's good to buy real estate 4 years ago, right? It's like they will live through it. If someone's trying to flip, even the things that I've looked at, this is not a flip situation. This is more let the community rebuild to get those larger numbers. And like Corey said, if it's unconforming, provide the comps. You can build a 3,000 square foot home on this 10,000 square foot lot in this area. What is that value? And doing the math.
I would say my experience in Woolsey is that there is unfortunately going to be a percentage of people that won't be able to afford to rebuild, and they're going to have to sell. So to put yourself in the best position to sell, with Woolsey, what most of the buyers were developers, and what they were looking for was permitted projects, because you're saving all the time in the permit process. Now they may buy a project that's not exactly how they want it to look, but changing a permitted project is so much easier than it is to start from scratch. So if you have a permitted project, and then with what Lee's saying, supplying as much value as possible. So if you can't build it yourself, have your plans incorporate the 10%, have your plans incorporate the ADU. At the end of the day, you're not forced to build these things. So putting as much value, to put yourself in the best position you can in the eyes of a potential buyer.
One of the last things to take away from that is, are you selling the property as a fire rebuild, or is somebody going to buy the property and not be eligible to qualify for a fire rebuild? Let's say they don't want to build for the next 3 years. That is the biggest difference, because there's a lot of issues that are legal non-conforming on these properties that you're getting away with right now that you will not in 3 years from now, when the fire rebuilds tend to expire. The Wolseley fire, you can't really do fire rebuilds anymore, and the program's over. So anybody who comes and develops is brand new, subject to all the new laws. So the main things on vacant property to look at would be, am I on city sewer, or do I need a septic tank? That's a big one. Number one is, where are my hydrants at? What is my water pressure in here? Do I have a 1-inch meter? Do I need to actually install a 1-inch meter during fire sprinklers in there? Road access. Those are the main ones to think about. And geology. The biggest thing is, can we save this to sell it as a fire rebuild, or do like what James is saying, is get it permitted and sell it vested with rights?
Marie, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm curious question. So, let's just say hypothetically, because I know situations like this. I don't know many people, but there is a property that I know that is on the market over there. It did not burn down, okay? So they listed it, but they did not go through the proper channels for air quality cleanup, hazmat, all the enchilada. I mean, what is the responsibility of the seller who didn't follow the protocol for reselling the property? How's that going to benefit in the future? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I guess I'm not even sure, like, if your house isn't burned down, like the EPA, I drove through the Palisades actually 2 weeks ago, and there were EPA clearances on homes that were there standing. So I guess that's probably the number one thing, is that if you were surrounded by fire and your house isn't burned down, I would imagine the EPA is going to do something.
They still do check it for phase 1, to make sure there's no, damaged Tesla batteries or anything else like that. If the house is still standing, the rest of it is kind of up to you. It is, as a point, when do you want to move back in?
I've bought fire homes and developed them. As a buyer, the first thing I did was air quality tests and some other tests. And so if those tests do not pass, you're gonna have issues, as a seller, right? So I think, and then what I do anytime I develop a home and I sell it, before I sell it, I do my own inspections to see what buyers are gonna look at. So doing some of those inspections on your own or advising your seller will probably be beneficial.
So let's go back to the 3-year expiration, because I know I've heard some estimates for rebuilding of being anywhere between 2 to 5 years. So what did people do that may be on the latter end of that timeline because either they don't have contractors that are available or, whatever the case may be? What happens to them in their rebuilding process if they get the 3-year expiration?
So it's not right now, I don't know if it's set in stone for 3 years, because with the Woolsey fire, it kept expanding, and even with the Malibu fires, it kept expanding. Like, the one me and Corey are working on, we submitted that last year. The fire happened a long time ago. So he's a little bit different option. He doesn't get the like-for-like plus 10%. He's similar, but if you are getting to the end where you know it's going to expire, what you have to do is vest. And in order to vest in LA County is to get a planning approval. And a planning approval really only requires an architectural plan to be submitted for the conceptual location of the house. You don't need to go through building plan check yet. You need your planning approval. So at least get architectural plans together, drawings, submit them to the planning department. Typical applications are, I think, $1,400 to the planning department. That's all it is. That's all it costs, and then your plans. If you can vest with planning before the time is up, that will carry you over to building and safety. And then you can submit to building and safety, and that's just playing a game of getting extensions and waiting 6 months and moving forward, just kind of playing that way. But you have to vest with the planning department.
Is the fire department approval part of the planning department process?
So, yes and no. With the Woolsey fire, they treated everything separately. On March 3rd, whatever they're about to open up over here, what's going to happen is they're going to use a third-party reviewer to review all the plans. Now, what happened in the Woolsey fire is you submitted the planning kind of blessed it, and they said, all right, good luck, and then you have to submit the fire, you submit the building safety, you submit to go pay your school fees or whatever for the 10%, you do everything. So you would have to submit the fire. So how they're going to do this is still a little bit unknown. And my understanding is that you'll submit to the portal, and on the portal you still have the control to submit to every single department. Will planning address that? No. It should be separately, and planning is only going to do their job. Typically, when you get to the building and safety portion, you'll get a correction sheet that says, okay, go to all these departments, get your approval, and then you come back to review your plans, make sure you have all your approvals, and we can approve you. And that's paying your school fees, getting your planning approval, because you can submit to building and safety first. Getting your fire approval, getting your water availability sign off. The fire flow, the testing of the hydrants, that is something you need to prove to the fire department when you submit the plans to the fire department. But you will do them all separately.
What that includes? Gas also.
Yeah, okay. It's banned in the city of LA, but here we still have gas. Yeah, well, it's not banned out here. So here, yeah, you gas wherever you want.
Go ahead.
The fire rebuild rights, that runs with the land, or is that die when you sell it?
No,
That's with the land. Like I mentioned earlier, we had a client purchase a property. The fact that the house on the property burned in fire gives it that right, regardless of who owns it.
Asking for a friend.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm the friend.
Subset of that, what do you get for the fire control? Like, what does that mean, and what does it mean to miss it?
The question was, what does that mean for fire rebuilding?
I think a lot of people would want to go to grass this time,
So, one is an expedited review.
Okay.
When I went and spoke with planning, the guy at the counter at LA County Public Works, he said that right before the fire, they were taking 3 months to review things for planning. He would expect, if you submit a new project after the fire rebuild stuff starts coming in, they just throw you to the back of the line. So anything you want to do by right that exceeds the 10% allotment for fire rebuild means that you're basically just a normal project and you're going to the very back of the line.
Even if you do it during the 3 years or whatever.
Well, yeah, if you're not doing like for like plus 10%, you're not a fire rebuild anymore. And they are prioritizing every fire rebuild ahead of any other normal development project. He said that in his estimation, it could take anywhere from 6 to 9 months just for planning approval on a project that is not a fire rebuild. Once these applications start coming in, that is the number one reason to do it.
And how expedited will it be for those who are applied?
He didn't tell me, but I mean, I think, like the city of LA said that it was going to be a week. I think I heard Waleed say something about a week early.
Yeah, so when I sat down, so just to clarify, Corey's comment is all, if, originally I wanted to build a two-story, and my family kids, you know, the box out of here, but, you know, and I was like, it's okay, why not? We're gonna wait the extra 3 months, we'll get 2 stories, they're like, no. So you won't be part of the county, they're gonna segregate these applications because it's Altadena, but it is gonna take longer than a standard, you know, fire removal, but you won't be with, you know, just the general public in a sense, from what they said 2 days ago, or whatever the other day. But, if you submit a fire rebuild application, 2 things, you can do it electronically, or you can actually go to the center and submit it in person, which I don't recommend. But, they are saying that they will review the initial application, again, within 7 to 10 business days. There's a dedicated team, they will review, they will then provide some type of corrections. I don't submit any plans, Michael, right? The expert, you know, in this case, maybe it's a little different, you know, because the plans aren't as complicated. The key is, once you get the first correction back, and it goes to James, it goes to the architect, that's the unknown part, right? And so they've done their job in the sense of getting the corrections, but then they go back. And again, they're saying every time you go back, it's about a 2-week process to review. So if everything goes smoothly, like I said earlier, you could be potentially cleared in July or, you know, August if you're submitting in March, let's just say.
I think some other benefits, you can keep non-conforming setbacks.
Yeah, so that is really the biggest one, is you're keeping legal non-conforming items, setbacks. Again, in the county, it's not gonna be like the city, so legal non-conforming in the county would be oak trees, you know, development of their oak trees, septic systems, locations for hydrants, you know, we'll still see how that plays out. Other than that,
Well, they also, with Woolsey, they like some other aspects that they do not require low impact development, which has to do with sort of capturing stormwater runoff. There's one thing you have to do with that for new construction, and for fire rebuilds, they halted that. So that could be another $20,000, $25,000 to put in that you wouldn't have to do as part of the fire.
We know that, but that's.
You wouldn't have to be, you would not have to apply for that.
So one of the things that makes Altadena, well, Southern California, but in particular Altadena, special was the character homes and the historic homes that we have here. So in the rebuild process, obviously we can't match the same type of construction that was used back in the early 1900s when these homes were built. But what are we going to expect in this rebuild process? Are we going to be looking at box homes that are more modernized, or are we going to see those character homes come back?
I think there's enough modern materials that you can fake the old stuff. For instance, like Hardy, a lot of these old like Gordon Matten homes, you can use Hardy that essentially looks like wood, it's got wood grain on it, things like that. You can use composition roof like you can now. I don't think that's going to be a huge deal. That's more of a design challenge than a building material challenge. So my advice to you guys would be to find a good architect.
You know, and also there's, like some of my neighbors, have been talking to a builder who's, giving them 3 options to build homes, and so it's like a group of 5, 6 neighbors. And I go in, and, you know, it looks like tract homes. They sent it to me, and, you know, they said, well, it's gonna be
you know, it takes a lot of time and effort to build something special, you know, and it's very profitable for a developer to standardize the home. Very profitable. It's actually less profitable to try to create the homes we live in Altadena, right? Especially when you're dealing with limited insurance and so on. So working and having a good architect, all that is important. But you know, as these, and they're gonna, I think, do it. So there will be 5 homes on my street that look almost identical. You know, there's nothing we can do about it. But so you're gonna see that. I get calls now. I think our name became public with the REO dashboard that opened up yesterday. You know, where you can track your phase 2 REO. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of calls I'm getting from I'll clear your lot, or you know, everyone. And so developers, contractors, so on. So just beware of that.
Yeah, just my personal opinion, I think that's one of the great losses. There's going to be a lot of benefits of new construction, you know, more durable, that sort of thing. But even just having a neighborhood grow naturally over 100 years, 100 plus years, there's going to be different decades, and different decades have different styles and they have different colors. And even today, you can look at homes that were built from 2000 to 2005, they just kind of same materials, same colors. So there's going to be trends today that colors people like, and there is going to be a uniformity that you're going to lose, and there's really no way to recapture that.
So, can you guys help me understand a little bit on the, if I buy a lot that has a fire refill, there's no restriction to the zone, correct? So if I buy 5 of them in a row, they can look like they're,
Generally, yes. Now, there's certain areas of the city where there are like architectural review and things of that sort. I can't speak to a specific lot at the moment, but you just have to make sure when you research the lot you're buying if there's any kind of historic restrictions and things like that. Because if you are building back, I would imagine at least some of those things are going to apply based on what was there already. It's actually a good question though as far as historic. I don't know how much.
Yes, so how does, if I buy a fire lot, I mean, it's a perfect example, the neighbors get together and say, hey, let's all sell to this guy.
Yeah, so.
You can put 4 vanilla boxes up, yes, there's nothing that's really gonna stop that.
The thing about it, everybody can submit plans, no matter what that house looks like. You can submit plans to the city, it'll get approved. And just think about what does the fire rebuild give me that I want? Right now, what they're operating is expedited review, like, hey, your house just burned down, we're back in the door tomorrow submitting plans. That's the number one thing. The second one is the legal non-conforming items. So what situation that I need to get back to what I had and you would never give me back. In LA County, it's not as bad as the city of LA, but like I said, a septic tank. A septic tank, that's over 100 grand for you to build a septic tank. You would want to reuse that septic tank. Without the fire rebuild, you are not allowed to do that. You would have to upgrade. So there's 100 grand just for a reason for the septic tank, you know, if they were all in good standing.
It also comes down to value, right? So we're on the price per square footage. If I get an extra 300 square feet, it's $800 a square foot. I gain 240 grand, it only cost me 50 grand or 100 grand to do that, right? So I think that's where, you know, we all come in and think, okay, how does this, you know, translate? Most of the homeowners, like myself and our neighbors, you know, the homes, as we all know, being real estate is their largest investment. And the only way they're going to ever try to get that back is to build something, you know? And so I met with the client yesterday where I sat with them and said, okay, let's look at your insurance money. Let's look at what the lot would sell for. If this cash, you're 80 years old, would allow you to go and retire at their age, let's have that conversation, you know? Now, me at my age, that's a different conversation. Them at their age, that is a real conversation. They don't have the time or the energy, you know? So they're looking at the pot and the insurance and their next phase in life. And I get chills. They just can't even control themselves, you know? And so everyone's having a different conversation, you know? Everyone's at a different point in life. And these, you know, guiding them and providing them with as much information so they can make my home will look great. And, I've sold homes on the street that it was here in Pasadena on Claremont Street, and it was 910 square feet, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, beautifully done. And there was 2 homes that were on the same street, were all real estate. It was a 3-bedroom, 2 bath, much bigger, everything. And mine sold faster and more at a higher price than the other ones. And so, product is very important, right? So if I put out a product and the neighbor that looks like, the tract home, again, a buyer will come in and value that differently, so. But I'm not going to change the way I build and my design because of now my 4 neighbors and the tract neighborhood, so that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I was just more specific in that you build a dream home, you build it perfectly, and everybody else around you is throwing in these good.
But I won't be the biggest and nicest on the block, but 20 years from now, I'm not looking to sell anytime soon. 10 years from now, I don't know how that will look. I can tell you from a financial perspective, real estate still, inventory levels are low. There are so many pre-approved buyers today than we've ever seen in any real estate cycle, because rates are high. COVID created a situation that we've never seen in real estate. Fannie Mae came out with a report that 70% of homeowners in the U.S. have a 4.5% interest rate or less. Out of that 70, 60% have a 3% rate or less. It's never happened. So my interest rate at 2.75 on that burned down lot is a value, and I'm going to get better. So we're not getting the term. The guy in Santa Monica is not selling to move to Pasadena because the rates are 7%. My rentals are getting such a demand of such well-qualified renters. I've never seen it before because they can. So the moment rates come down, and you're going to see a big influx regardless of what happens. And now you have all these displaced families. I just don't see how that's going to negatively impact my value.
Yes. So I just have a question. I wonder if we could go back to the older couple you sat down with who were evaluating how much money they had to work with and the value of their lot. Can you say a little bit more of ultimately what it would cost for them to rebuild?
So
per square foot, perhaps.
I am telling I'm a conservative financial person. If anyone's done loan with I come from the middle ground. I'm using $500 a square foot as an average number. People are telling me that's too low, too high, whatever the case is. But it's a simple math. Why? Because like Forrest said, we are developing, rebuilding from the street up. I don't think people realize the amount of work and effort and cost that comes through. So just a simple number. And at 500 a square foot, they did not have enough insurance money to cover that rebuild. It was only a 1,400 square foot home, but they were underinsured. So they had the value of the land and other things. So that's how we kind of backed into those numbers. Now, construction come in less or lower, but we can't, for them to make this life-changing decision, I can't tell them it's going to be $300 a square foot. At the same time, I can't tell them it's $700 a square foot, And so it was just a very eye-opening process for them. They're going to just, think about it. I did advise them not to rush into selling their land. I said, let the lots get cleaned up around you. You're getting rental assistance. And take this time, take a breath, take a step back, let the community rebuild, and see where not only where they will be, but also how much that lot will be done.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious on just from the valuation standpoint for the burnout lots and the clearing of it. So it's going to be, you have 3 months to opt in to have Army Corps of Engineers and stuff do that, correct? Or whatever the time frame is. So if you're a developer looking at buying a lot that's been cleaned out or is going to be cleaned out under that program, you're gonna pay a different number for that than you are for one that didn't opt in, didn't decide, and is gonna, oh, we're gonna do it ourselves, and then that would take up cost for that. How's that gonna impact your value as a developer? Then the second question is, with the 100%, 110% rebuild, do you view, would you not look at a lot that's got an under improvement versus a lot that's got more reasonably sized prior home on it?
So I've been approached to purchase some lots already, and for just where I'm at, I'm choosing not to. But to me, demand and how many lots will be on a lot, for sale are going to be important, right? So everyone's going to go through a different cycle. So I'm not going to look at, I guess because I know the Army Corps and other things, I don't need to lowball someone because they're lost. But that's the reality of what people are doing. I had someone reach out. They got a $350,000 offer. It's like, just the one on Calaveras that they sold for 500 or 550.
There's a 550, a 603,
yeah,
and
so,
a 680.
But you're gonna again. I think timing of how fast you can rebuild. When I analyze things, it's how much money it's going to cost, how fast can I rebuild, or do I need to sit on the lot because there's maybe more upside. Like I said earlier, lots are cash transactions at this point. So there are funds that I know that are just waiting on the. I know some of them, and they're just waiting in massive cash to see if they could come in and purchase. It's too early to see that, but there's a lot of people, as we all probably know, that have a tremendous amount of cash. They're not opportunistic, but they're going to look at this as an opportunity.
Well, we're approaching the end of our panel, but if there are any additional questions, either on topics that we've discussed or not discussed, now would be a great time.
So politicians never want to put a good crisis away. And what happened in Hawaii, everybody knows. They changed the rules after all the drama. They changed the rules and made it really hard for people to go back. Now, what do you guys see our politicians doing a year from now to change the rules? Or what is the political pressure? What do you think it is now to be for them to change?
From a building standpoint, LA County already went through it. I think the people in the city of LA might have a rude awakening coming, because there's a lot of things in the city that they don't do in the LA County, like fire flow tests and all that stuff. But, the good thing is, you kind of got, not the good thing, but you got to see this in LA County, for example, with the Woolsey fire, and what they did in Malibu. They didn't really change much. Yeah, they made it harder for developers to go and develop in the Santa Monica Mountains, but there is a difference there. And so right now, what I'm personally seeing is the city is behind. The city of LA is behind. They've never gone through this, and what the county is doing and setting up comparatively what they did with the Woolsey fire, they're moving quickly. And they already have a program in place. They didn't really change much with the Woolsey fires. Really, when it comes down to it, it should be only life safety issues, fire life safety issues. And that's really where the codes are changing, requiring a minimum amount of water, requiring, high fire zone construction details, no exposed heat, stuff like that. Everybody's thinking they're just going to say no type 5 in hillsides. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. It's going to go far enough. I wouldn't think so. We're trying to have, because you got to also remember the state came after everybody. The housing department came after the city and the county, and every single, they tore up lockdown over here. We need housing. So for them to go back on that goes against exactly what they've been trying to do right now. So I think it would be minute little changes as a political standpoint. Will we see it here in Altadena? I hope not. I don't expect it to. And there are no rules and regulations over here. The hardest thing about Altadena is the amount of oak trees. You never develop. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. You can build your mega mansions and do whatever you want here. I mean, yeah, the county is slow compared to the city and other places, but you can still do what you want here. So I'm very positive that things at Altadena will grow back to what it is quicker than Wolseley. That's my personal optimistic opinion.
What's your advice with hiring an architect? Should we work with an architect that's affiliated with a contractor or an independent architect?
Well, if you take Corey for an example, they're not a third party. So Corey hires a team. You know, he'll hire a team. He doesn't always have the same players. Like, I might not do all of this project as the expediter. He doesn't always use the same structural engineer. But he has a team. He has the people available to make any project happen. And so, hiring a person like Corey, he's going to have connections to 4 different contractors. You know, hiring somebody like myself, well, now you're going to have, 5 different architects, that you can go look at. But yeah, you would want to find somebody, not just really a draftsman, somebody who's like, oh, let me do a fire rebuild and get my feet wet kind of thing. You do want to see people, and I will say, you want to find somebody who's done work in LA County, unincorporated LA County, in this area. Like Corey has done that. And so, yeah, you would want to find somebody like Corey, like himself, that they'll have all the resources and team that you're looking for.
Yeah, the only thing I could probably add, most people just kind of lump architects and contractors in the same bucket. Architects and contractors actually, for the large part, don't get along. Mike's exactly right. That's what I was going to say. Like, I'm connected with many contractors, and I'm speaking with them regularly about their availability, and so you can kind of leverage architects' relationships with contractors as far as having availability and holding spots, things like that, as much as people can. There are design build firms that kind of put everything all in one package, and if you want to deal with less people, like, I would recommend doing that. I don't have a lot of experience with design build, the design build process, because I don't do it. But the biggest thing, no matter whether it's an architect, a contractor, or whatever, find somebody you can trust, find somebody that's competent. Those are the biggest things.
I'll give you, I don't know if it's just because I'm lucky, I get all these stories, but I had someone refer to me, and their parents met a contractor, and the contractor told them that they will streamline the process, they will handhold, and so on. They just want a $50,000 deposit check. They wrote a $50,000 deposit check, and of course the contractor was fake, and that is now in Altadena, and so we're all, again, licensed, and we all know this business, and everyone can undercut anyone, but making sure we just can guide our clients in the right way and let them just know, just to, like I said, take a step back and do their due diligence and work with reputable people, not just the cheapest, quickest kind of scenario. So it's happening, with people trying to get money.
I would just say historically, it used to be the master builder was the same as the structural engineer, the same as the architect, and they didn't have permits. But there's a reason there are 4 different people these days, where there's architecture, engineering, permitting, construction. It's just because of how complex it is. So I'm naturally skeptical of a design build firm where you're meeting one person and they prefer to know how to build it, how to design it, how to engineer it, and how to permit it. So I'm naturally skeptical of that.
I would say there's a large design build company that I work for. They don't know everything. Like they don't know something, but that's what they are. They're design build, and I do all of the permits for them. So contractors are good to look at for phase 1 or for phase 2, getting the property cleaned up, having that relationship with them. Your next step would be hiring somebody like an architect, designer, or myself like an expediter. And we'll be the persons to bring all of us together to get all the right team members. We'll hire someone, we'll go out and hire him.
I think that's actually a really good point. Find someone you really trust. It might be the contractor, it might be the architect. that they can help bring in the rest of the team.
All right, well, thank you all so much for being here today. We want to thank our panelists, members, for their teams. Best of luck to everyone as you deal with the rebuilding process.